Specialness, Season 3, Episode 2. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kim.
And as promised last week after we caught you up, we were going to go over some of the reels that we've been putting out since we've been on hiatus. And we had one reel that's really got a lot of attention. It's got over 180,000 hits on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And in that one, we talked about how the divorce rate for couples like us, people who are married with special needs children, was 87%.
Right.
And we got over 300 comments that talked about that. And we wanted to talk about some of those comments. But before we even get started, we do want to recognize that a few people did point out rather sternly that that statistic was incorrect. And you know, we're not unwilling to admit our faults. So we have an update because we've done some research.
We have.
Right?
So let's talk divorce.
Yeah. Not that this is a podcast about getting divorced,
Right.
but let's talk divorce statistics.
Right. So let's go to how that 80 to 87% number came to be.
Because we didn't make it up.
Yeah, we didn't make it up.
Yeah.
So we did some research. And that
Apparently we didn't do research then,
Right.
but we did have done research
Right.
since.
So this all started in the 1970s and early 80s, and it was a small-scale parent support group that noticed within their small groups there was a high rate of marital distress. And that survey was not peer-reviewed. It wasn't scientifically reviewed. It was basically just self-reported surveys from a handful. They didn't even say the number, but it was just a handful of parents that were, the funny thing is, they were already seeking crisis therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Which sounds very 70s.
it does sound
Crisis therapy. Yeah.
So when articles started being put out about this small percentage of parents that are in crisis therapy due to marital distress, they confused, quote, marital distress with those people that were actually already legally divorced.
And somehow, before the internet, of course,
Right.
somehow this became accepted as the truth.
Right.
And it turns out that was also based on, we've all heard that the divorce rate overall is, it's well over 50%. And actually,
our research.
It never has been. It was a projection.
Right.
But, we've come to accept these things as being true. And we did as well.
Right. And that 80 to 87% stat spread extremely fast, especially within special needs communities, because it felt intuitively true to those people like us that understand the immense daily stress of parenting special needs.
Is that what AI told you?
This is part of my research.
But from AI,
Yeah.
right? Because that sounds like AI.
Yeah.
Let me just make that a little simpler for everybody. When you're in our situation and you hear a number like that, you go, "Well, yeah, that sounds right."
Right.
And I remember we said this in one of our comments back that, look, when we heard that, we thought to ourselves, "Wow," because we didn't hear this in the 70s. Obviously,
Right.
I was probably 8 when that statistic broke. But when we heard that, and I don't even recall where we heard it, but when we heard it, we immediately were like, wow, I can believe it. And B, God, look at us. We're doing so
We're doing
awesome. We really looked at it like it was it was something we could be proud of because we were getting it done.
Right.
It was a rallying cry for us.
Right.
So I'm going to be honest, even though I was deceived, I still feel okay about it.
Right. Because we could, like you said, we can understand why that number would have been that high.
Yeah, because it adds stress that civilian marriages don't have to deal with.
Right. So, part of the research,
Of
this
course.
is from the Journal of Psychology,
Okay.
said that parents of special needs children face slightly higher risk of divorce compared to neurotypical children.
Not slightly less stress,
Right.
just a slightly higher rate of
For
divorce.
And then that same Journal of Psychology broke it down into basically 3 categories.
Okay.
The first was those parents that are raising an autistic child,
All right.
over time, their divorce rate was 23% when compared to neurotypical parents raising a neurotypical child was 11 to 13%. So that's almost double, right?
That's a pretty big increase
That is a big
over
increase.
normal.
Right. Then the next category was Down syndrome children.
syndrome.
So if you're raising a Down syndrome children, your divorce rate over time was 7.6% compared to the neurotypical children was 11 to 13.
So it's less.
Right. So their divorce rate overall is less.
And I will say that we had a couple of Downs parents who did say very emphatically, hey, we don't leave our Downs angels. We don't, no man left behind.
Right.
You know, and that's great.
That they bring so much joy to their lives. I mean, it was great comments
Mm-hmm.
to see.
Yeah.
And then the third category was kind of bunched together where they said like all other birth defects. So they were saying it could be physical, mental challenges, all that kind of stuff. And that percentage was 10.8%. And again, neurotypical is 11 to 13. So it was
roughly the same.
very similar. And when I kind of was delving deeper into this of what, the autistic children, wonder why that's higher. Well, I kind of had an idea, but I wanted to see what the research was showing. And a lot of it dealt with the fact that Down's children and other physical, like they said, birth defects or whatever, happens at birth. You know at birth instantly, or even prior to that with the way we have technology.
Now today I would say there's a good chance you know prior.
Right.
Yeah.
You can know prior that you have a little bit more preparedness possibly versus autistic children. The pregnancy could be completely healthy. There is no blood test for it. And you have this child, and depending on the severity of the autism, you figure out, it could be age 3, it could not be diagnosed until 7, it could be diagnosed even later than that. But as that time is going on, these parents are struggling because their child's struggling. They're struggling in school, they're struggling socially, whatever it is. And then on the extreme side of autism, nonverbal and things like that, that gets picked up earlier, but again, it's not at birth. And so this article was expressing the fact that there is a little bit of a shock value to it, that a marriage, when they have a little bit of head start on, okay, yeah, you are going to be parenting a special needs child of this versus you think you have a healthy child and you plan, and then all of a sudden at age 3 or 4 and whatever, something's not right. And then as autistic parents out there that understand, it's not a one and done. You have to find, pediatric, pediatric psychologist and all, neuropsychologist and all that kind of stuff. It's not easy just to get an autism diagnosis and that you go in and do a blood test, right? So that was a big part of it. And then the other part was the fact that temperament of Down syndrome children versus temperament of autistic children. And I'm not saying all autistic children are like this, and I'm not saying all Down's children are all physical. I'm not lumping everyone into all or whatever. It's the fact that this research showed that a lot of autistic children do have behavioral issues of some sort, while Down's children do not have the same level of behavioral issues.
They don't tend to.
They don't, right. And I'm not saying all, I'm just saying that the research was showing that's one of the reasons that the autistic divorce rate was a little bit higher than what the other ones were. So that was a little bit eye-opening because I hadn't even really thought about the fact that, the research now, that they break it up into what kind of special needs.
Yeah, that was my reaction to it because, as people were responding, either with, and we're going to get into the responses here in a second, but whether they were responding, questioning the statistic, or they were agreeing with it, or the point is that as people started talking about, for instance, the Down syndrome, parents and caregivers said, hey, we don't do that, and that bears it out. It does point out something to me, though. And in a survey that I conducted, 100% responded, and I only did myself. So in my survey of myself, it made me realize how many people who, as I call civilians, people who aren't dealing with what we deal with, civilians tend to lump special needs into just a couple of categories, right? If it's a mental side, it tends to be autism or Down syndrome, or it's a physical disability. We're in a much different situation. We're in a genetic deletion where it's created all kinds of physical and mental maladies. So I think a lot of it has to do with the complexity of what you're dealing with.
Mhm.
And I would think that because the level of stress is greater when you are dealing with more diagnoses, uncertainties, expenses, all the things that are difficult on a regular marriage are amplified that much more because of the difficulty of the situation that you're dealing with. I would think that the stress on a marriage would be higher.
Right.
Now, again, I'm not making a sweeping claim about it, but when I heard the 87%, it made me realize that I was applying it to us.
Right.
And I would think, if you're telling me that 8.7 out of every 10 people who are dealing with what we're dealing with got divorced, I could totally believe it.
Right. You either know prior to the birth or at birth.
Mm-hmm.
But in like our situation, Kason was completely healthy, was physically normal. According to doctors and stuff, he hit his milestones.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the behavior side that we were like, what is this? But look at how long, go back and watch some of those other episodes, but look how long it took us to figure out what we were dealing with. He was,
it took us
13 years.
It took us our whole first season to cover that. It was like 9 episodes of covering that.
And then once we did get the diagnosis of the 15q25.2 deletion, no doctors have ever heard of it.
Right.
Versus if you go into a developmental pediatrician's office with a Down's child or a nonverbal autistic child, they know what to do with that.
Well, they certainly know a whole lot more about what to do.
But in our situation, they would look at us like, okay.
Well, it was also like they would be like, well, maybe it's this.
Yeah.
So we'll treat that and see what happens.
Right.
So I think that's where I get into the uncertainty, right? There are established medical best practices on how to care for someone with Down syndrome or autism.
Mm-hmm.
There are not established care patterns for someone with specific genomic deletions.
Right. And that deletion has caused pediatric onset schizophrenia and bipolar, which is extremely rare in itself. So most doctors didn't even believe that could be a possibility on top of autism.
Right. I think our point was when we heard that statistic, we could believe it because of the situation we were in.
Right.
We're both very glad to hear that reality is not as dire as that was.
Right.
It certainly makes me feel better that we don't have that high of a percentage of not just marriages ending in divorce, but that would also mean to me that there was, in a lot of cases, there would have been a parent who decided to quit on the situation. And again, not all situations, but looking for an out of some sort. So I'm glad to know that that's
not the case. We're better. We found out we're all better humans than we thought.
Yeah. If nothing else, we found out
we're a strong community.
There's some really good humans in this community.
Yeah. They were saying the divorce risk timeline for those parents parenting neurotypical children, that divorce risk declines sharply as the child grows past 8 and becomes independent, whereas special needs parents, that percentage stays flat or a little elevated through adolescence and early adulthood. Then they talked about primary stressors that in the typical neurotypical world, You're dealing with the standard developmental milestones for the child, schooling and their extracurricular activities. And in the special needs world, we're dealing with that, but we're also dealing with endless advocacy,
Doctor's appointment.
doctor's appointments. They said sleep deprivation, constant changing of plans, and health issues. And then they talked about the financial stress that special needs, going between neurotypical and special needs. The neurotypical, you're dealing with this is only dealing with children. We're not talking about anything else. That you're dealing with this, typical child rearing stuff, food, clothing, any school expenses,
Extracurricular activities.
yeah, paying for soccer, paying for whatever it is. But the special needs parent, we're dealing with a lifetime of medical bills, specialized therapies, and specialized caregiving.
Well, and I would even go further and say specialized extracurricular activities.
Right. And I was going to say, and special schools. I mean,
Right.
there are.
We can't just sign up for a random soccer league.
Right.
Right. We have to seek one out that will accommodate his needs.
Right.
And perhaps be a league of individuals that are similar to him in
Right.
skill set,
skill sets.
temperament, and all that. So it's a lot more. There's a lot more to think about, a lot more work to do, fewer options.
Right.
And I think all that creates a substantial amount of stress.
It does. And then the last one was co-parenting dynamics, where in the neurotypical family, there's an equal division of labor that is easier to navigate as the kid grows. So they were kind of talking about, like in summertime or holiday, Christmas vacation, whatever, who's going to take who to soccer practice, who's going to pick the child up if both parents are working or whatever. That's, it's just easier to navigate that. But in the special needs world, they said it's highly uneven distribution of care, which often leaves one parent deeply isolated as the child grows up. And that in neurotypical families, the parental stress level drops significantly once the child reaches self-sufficiency, which we have talked about before. As in the special needs family, caregiving timeline does not end at 18.
Right.
And that's where they were saying if special needs families were going to get divorced, a lot of that happened after they turned 18.
Yeah. So all of this to say,
Yes.
to the dissenters who pointed out that our statistic was incorrect, or that we were spreading negativity,
Right.
That's kind of the frustrating thing about a reel, is it's just a small moment of a much larger conversation.
Right.
That was not our intention.
Nope.
And we responded to several of those comments with a similar answer. And we're here today to set the record straight. So now that we've done that, let's take a look at the actual comments that we got. And there was hundreds of comments, a lot of thousands of responses, likes, and whatever, but some very poignant comments were made with some follow-ups that were by other people other than us too. So there was kind of a grouping that they would kind of fall into. I think we decided they fall into like 6 categories.
6 different categories.
So we're going to start just like like you should. We're going to start at the bottom. We're not
Right.
going to start at number 1. We're going to start at the bottom, and let's go through our list
Okay.
of comments.
So the 6th most prominent topic that got comments or likes or whatever was single parenting.
Okay.
And the comment that got the most activity was this: if her father didn't want to stick it out with me, I wouldn't expect another man to.
Now, interesting that we found out that, oh my gosh, it's not 87%, it's a much smaller percentage. But this comment got a lot of support, not just support like, oh, I feel bad for you, or that's too bad, or whatever. I mean, a lot of it was the equivalent of amen, I hear you, I mean,
Yeah.
it was,
Or that happened to me too.
that happened to me. I'm in the 87%. which I think, first of all, that's the part I think we were alluding to when we heard about it, is that I think in most cases, probably the people who respond, I think the person who wrote that comment obviously got divorced. And I would assume that a lot of the other people that responded similarly probably also ended up getting divorced or were having some significant marital problems. And the fact that what they were saying was, hey, my partner didn't want to be my partner,
Or my partner maybe wanted to be my partner, but didn't want to have a special needs child.
Right.
Couldn't deal with it.
Right. And so they just backed out.
Now, and
we don't have extra context on it,
Right.
other than, maybe they did continue to pull their weight, the every other week thing or
Right.
whatever. But
I think the other part of her comment was very important, was when she said, if my partner couldn't stick it out with me, how can I expect another man to do that?
yeah,
And that was something, you and I have talked about that in the past too. We're like, if something, God forbid, happens to one of us, it was like, we're going to end up being single, because can you imagine bringing somebody else into this world that hasn't dealt with it, been around it before?
In our case, I can't imagine finding the time to go on a date.
Right.
So, if I'm the sole caregiver and I still have to
Do
work
everything.
a job or what, I don't know where I'd have the time.
Right.
So I think that, and I think that'll drive some other comments, but I do think that is a sentiment that I could totally relate to.
Yeah.
Not in the instance of a divorce, but yes, if something happened to you and I was left in a situation where this is now my sole responsibility, I just don't think there would be room in my life for somebody else that doesn't understand this. No. It's hard to imagine that.
And that would be, it's lonely, it's hard, and
it's lonely now.
Right.
Doing
it by yourself.
Yeah, and
hard.
that would be doubly hard. So, for all the people out there that are in that situation, people who responded to that comment, certainly the person who posted it,
or those that raised their hand and said, I'm in that 87.
Yeah.
When, there was a lot of those too. So,
and that's why we wanted to do this, and
Right.
just give people an opportunity to be seen, and just to let them know that we see them and we understand.
And it's hard.
And it is hard. So that was our sixth bucket.
Right.
But it did get a lot of activity. I don't want to undersell what that comment.
Right.
That was certainly not the in the minority of comments that got attention.
It got a lot
along that topic. There was
Right.
That was the one that got the most.
Okay, so the fifth one was advice/wisdom, and the comment was, when I need a break, I tag out. I think we both know it really takes two. It's the whole tag team philosophy, and that got a lot of likes and hearts on
Lots
that.
of thumbs up.
Lots of thumbs
Right.
up on that one.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
I think this was part of the feel good, part of it, because to me, not only does that say, yeah, this is hard, this is a lot of stress, and I think it's also sort of a acknowledgement of, hey, look, I don't want to say that we're not having our own issues, but the fact that so many people talked about that it's a team effort, that it's important that you can rely on the other person to pull some of that weight, and that we're seeing that. I think it's great encouragement. It's very encouraging. It was encouraging to us, and even though we feel we do that, it's encouraging to hear other people basically reaching out to people and saying, hey, try this out, or don't allow yourself to be alone in the
Right.
in the
Or,
journey.
I think one of the comments that was in this advice/wisdom was like, communication is key. And the fact that this person had said, when I need a break, I tag out, and that the partner knows they're done.
Right.
I have to pick up the slack. And and we do that all the time, especially like when Kason broke his ankle and stuff. When I'm home all day long, dealing with all of that. Like you come in the door, I'm like, hey, hi, bye. Like it's, I'm done. I'm going, I need time.
And I understood that,
Yeah.
and didn't take it personally. It was circumstantial, that, and we talked about that last week. It was hard to go from, well, it was every summer it was like this. And then we got to the point where, well, now he goes to a day program year round. So we thought we had moved to this new phase of life where at least, 8 to 5, 8 to 6, we kind of had a life potential. And then to be thrust back into it. But even then, even when you do we still had weekends. We still have weekends we got to navigate through, and that's still a tag team deal. So it was just really good to see people putting into practice what we were doing. So it's just reaffirming to know that we're doing the best we can.
Right. Okay, the fourth one says stress and strain is real. And the comment was, we often joke that we'd actually get some respite if we were separated/divorced. And we both, when we saw that, we both laughed because we've said that jokingly.
We've made that joke before on one of these podcasts. Right. Look, we might cover this a couple times here, but me personally, I rely on a sense of humor to just do almost anything. And I've relied on it pretty heavily in this situation with us. I try to be the comic relief in our situation. And we have literally joked about that. When we have joked about, well, if we can't find time to get away together, what if we just got divorced? Would that solve the problem?
We'd have a week on and a week off.
Yeah, and I think someone else made a comment along the lines of, you don't get divorced because you don't love each other. You get divorced so that you can more effectively split the care.
Yeah.
And that was heavy, to think that there are people out there who have gotten divorced because they were like, we still love each other, but we just can't do this in the same house. We have to find a way to separate the strain. I would rather be under 100% of the strain 2 weeks out of the month and have little or no strain the other 2 weeks than try to have 50% all the time. That's sad, and it's too bad that it comes to that in some cases. I certainly feel for those people, especially if they still have a strong love for one another. But I obviously that comment has got a tinge of humor to it.
Yeah,
because obviously I don't think anyone wants to get divorced because of a situation that's out of your control. Regular marriage tends to fall apart based on, a finite number of things: money, infidelity. We have had also jokes about how does anyone have time to cheat?
Right.
When do you do that? And I know we got several comments on that too.
We've
That's
got
coming
some
up.
stuff coming up, but I like that this comment got the most likes and comments under the stress and strain is real. And the fact that they used humor and to say, yeah, we kind of joked about, just to get away, because it is stressful and it is our life. It is real. We're not trying to be negative. We're not trying to sound defeating or whatever, but the reality is a lot of us feel the stress and the strain.
I think if all we did was give people an avenue to put that out there and get some affirmation from it, that was our whole intention. That's the way we felt from the 87%, hearing that 87% number.
Yeah.
Was it wasn't someone giving us an affirmation of what we're going through, but it was, wow, if it's that bad, we must be doing something right.
We're doing something right.
So the fact that, if nothing else, this post created a small temporary community where people could come together and support one another or provide support
what I found out of the 180,000 comments or whatever, so many people were saying a lot of the same things. And really, it was a place for people to go and to say, man, other people live this life too.
Yeah.
It's isolating. It's lonely. And sometimes people don't understand it. But man, people in this community get it because I'm reading these comments and they're saying almost the exact same thing that I would say, or what I'm feeling, or, that to me is what, I don't know, stood out the most, I guess, is the fact that it just showed that so many of us, and it's not just the United States. I mean, it was London, it was Poland, it's Australia, it's Ireland. I mean, it was people all over the world.
Senegal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All over the world that is dealing with the same issues under different situations, but the feelings were the same.
Yeah. And I think what's something I have to admit, I didn't expect that we would hear as much from international people. I don't know why I would assume that. I don't know, but I have been. It is certainly reaffirming to hear that people who live under a completely and totally different medical system are still experiencing the same stresses and challenges that we are. And I say we, not Americans. I mean literally us.
Right.
So it's all been very therapeutic, to hear and see those things.
Yeah, we're not alone in this. Okay, the third highest category was abandonment and infidelity. And the comment was, my ex-partner left us 5 years ago for another woman because he felt, quote, neglected. But on the plus side, don't you just love it when the rubbish takes itself out? We are thriving without him.
Shout out to the United Kingdom.
Yeah,
that's
rubbish.
That's from over the pond. Talking about rubbish. Yes, yeah. That again. That's a sense of humor. Making the best of a situation that's. Obviously, I think what that person is saying is that in the long run, there was possibly some blessing in that, I can also see what that opened my eyes to is if you're staying married out of a sense of commitment to being married, but you're not committed to the family dynamic, then you're probably not doing any good anyway.
Right.
So the fact that what might be perceived as a selfish choice to leave actually ends up possibly being a benefit overall.
Yeah, the fact that she's like, we are thriving without him, exclamation point. And the fact that, and the word that the word neglect, that he felt neglected.
Yeah.
A lot of people under this comment that were in the same situation said use that same word, neglect.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about that.
Yeah, we shouldn't dismiss that word.
No, it's
instantly.
Right, because you can see how easy it would be for a spouse. It didn't have to be just the man. I mean, it could be the wife too, that feels neglected, because if you are so focused on this child and this child's need, you're tired, you're like we were just saying when Kason broke his ankle and stuff, I was so dead at the end of the day. You'd come home and I'd literally be like, hey, bye. And I really hadn't even talked to you most of the day. And I just needed time away. And if that happened,
you neglected me.
I neglected you. Yeah. And but if you think about if that happened every single day where you're not communicating with your spouse, someone's going to feel neglected. And instead of talking about it or trying to figure a way out, I think sometimes it's easy. People think, oh, it's just easier to cheat and move on,
Yeah. And I will give some credence to, look, I'm not defending anyone's decisions. That's not the point. But I think we can all understand marriages break up for a variety of reasons, and there's two sides to every story. And, some people just aren't built for this, and I do not mean that as a disparaging comment toward anybody. One of the things that we get told all the time, and we've talked about this before, is people said, I just don't know how you do it, or
We couldn't
I
do it.
couldn't do
Yeah.
that, or well, and we always say, you shouldn't say that because we didn't choose this.
Right.
This was thrust on us, and sure, we had a choice. We either deal with it or we don't. But I would like to think that the majority of people do dig in
Mhm.
and deal with it, and that's what these revised statistics tell me.
Mhm.
But I feel I think just as much empowerment should be awarded to this individual who said that they're thriving now, without their partner.
I mean, but we have friends and family that have literally said, we literally could not do this.
Right.
Like, we would end up divorced. They were very honest about it and saying we'd be divorced because they were like, we're both very independent and we like to do our own thing and we want to travel and we want to do all this stuff, and your life would depress us. Like, we could not do that.
And you know what my response is to that? You think I don't want to travel? You think I don't want to do independent things?
Right. You have to.
You do what you have to do.
You become creative.
So when people tell us I couldn't do that, I tend to respond with, I think you're just saying that to make me feel better, because
to make us feel like we're Superman and something, we're special.
Either that or you're saying something horrible about yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, you love your kids. You're going to do what you have to do, I think, in most cases. And I would even say people who decide that they can't do it as a married couple, to some degree, I would sure like to think that they continue to try and contribute as best they can. And I know there are people out there who have posted who certainly feel that that's not the case. And that's the tragedy of this.
But there were people that commented that they were divorced. They did end up getting divorced because somebody could not
but
deal
they still both continue.
But they still
right.
both parent. They're back into the one we were saying where wouldn't it be nice if jokingly, we could be separated, we get a week on, we get a week off. And there were several people that commented on that and said, we do parent almost better being separated. Then we've handled the situation better being separated and divorced than under the same roof. So, that whatever works for people, we're not saying one way or the other is bad, right, wrong, whatever.
Oh, yeah, this is definitely not, there's only one way to do
or
it.
a judgment of how people end up doing things. But the comments that we get from people we know that say we couldn't do that, you don't know what you can and can't do, until you're in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I firmly believe that because, I don't think either of us saw this coming 24 years ago. And I'm sure that if you had told us 24 years ago this is about to happen, we would have said, well, I'm not going to be able to handle that.
Right. Well, we did say that, actually.
Yeah, well, we did
right.
We did say, yes,
we couldn't handle certain things.
In our adoption story, we did say we could deal with anything but mental illness. And we were clearly wrong.
Right. And look, we figured it out.
We're figuring it out.
Well, it's been 24 years and we've done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But you know what? Maybe we should take this opportunity to say we're a good married couple. We're a good team.
We're in the top 13% of marriages.
That's right. We've figured a way out.
Yeah.
We're doing it.
According to my statistics, we're killing it.
We are.
Yeah.
Let's pat ourselves
on the back. And you're
back.
killing it.
Yeah. And maybe, to those people, friends, family, or whatever that make those comments, we could never do it. let's take it that they're just saying we're awesome people.
We're all in this together. Us, the United Kingdom, Senegal.
Yeah. All of
Ireland.
us special needs parents are.
We're the World Cup of marriage.
Right. We're the best. Okay. Let's move on.
Okay.
The second biggest topic, I guess, said it made us stronger / bonded us. And I love this quote. I think I commented on it on the post.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people did. Was it can also develop a bond, or can I say trauma bond, between the parents because you form a relationship based on the needs of your child that nobody else can understand. And when I read that, I literally wanted to start crying, because that is so true. And that is what, when people were feeling we were being negative or we're being defeated by talking about the possibility of divorce, I want to be like, but no, this is why we were talking about it. That yes, things can happen in marriages, blah, 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 blah. But I love the fact that this person pointed out that one of the beautiful things of having a special needs child is that it can bring you a lot closer to your spouse, because like you say all the time, who the hell else is going to understand what you're going through?
Right.
I mean, you can talk to a friend, you can talk to your family.
I do talk to friends, and I feel like
they look at you with
they're nodding and being like, "Oh, gosh,
nodding and smiling and
yeah.
being like,
I think what they're thinking is, thank God
it's
not you."
Right.
But I can tell you that the term trauma bond is not something I had ever
thought about.
Well, I mean, if I'd heard it, it didn't hit me the way the comment did. But that's a as my friends in the UK would say, that's a brilliant way to put it, because that is what it is. And there are certainly cases of trauma bonding prevalent, over events that happen
right
in
different
society.
situations.
But what we have had to deal with between us, and other couples out there can say the same thing, every one of our situations is completely and totally unique, whether you're just barely on the spectrum or you're in one of the extreme aspects of it. Everything you've experienced, only your partner understands the extent of what you've had to deal with.
They've watched it, they've seen it, they've dealt with it, yeah.
And I'm using the term partner literally in a business sense, because this is the business of child rearing.
Right.
You can say spouse, you can say wife, you can say husband, but the point is, this is beyond partnership in our situation. All marriages are a partnership, but this simply cannot work when one person is pulling all the weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's where we lit up on 87%, it was just so believable and so true. But again, I'm just glad to hear it's not reality. But it was, reading those comments was there were several comments in that same vein.
Well, a lot of people loved the trauma bond word.
Yeah.
And they're like, that is perfect. That describes exactly what we're trying to explain to people, that we use the word, our life is very isolating, because like we just said, we can talk to friends, we can talk to family, but until you live our life, and it doesn't have to be just like our situation, a special needs family's life, and you deal with all the aspects that goes into that, you can have the best lunch or coffee date with a friend, but you're still not getting I understand, Jeff. I feel you when you say that you had to pay $10,000 for a medicine prescription, because you and I both know they haven't had to do that before. Or having to pay for X, Y, and Z when they have it, and they just give you that look like, I'm so sorry, but like you just said, inside they're thinking, I'm so glad that's you and not me.
God, that's
right. But to be able to sit down with somebody that is walking this journey, same but different journey, you can sit down and be like, oh my gosh, you know what? We had to change medicines because of this. Or, oh my gosh, school is not working. They're not following the IEP. Or this doctor, do you know of a doctor that does this? It's a sense of, bonding with that person, because they can bond with you over the trauma of it. But not, I don't know. It's just, I love it. I want to get that tattooed, trauma bond.
The trauma bond
tattoo.
I'm gonna get it in barbed wire around my bicep.
Yeah, I just really like that. Because obviously married people have a bond. You wouldn't have been married if you didn't have that bond. But the fact that it's labeled as trauma, that this bond is so strong because of that.
I would add a little nuance to it. I would call it a traumatic bond, because the trauma hasn't ended. You know,
True.
when you build a trauma bond over 9/11 because you were both firefighters who charged in, well, that was a single event. It stays with you forever, but it was a single event, and you move into recovery afterwards. In our situation, it's just another day. The trauma is either less or more on a daily basis, right?
Yes.
It all depends what's going on. So I would say we're bonded on a traumatic bond, but I'll take trauma. It's fine. It's a great way to put it.
It is.
It is a great illustration of what we're all dealing with on a daily basis.
Right. Okay.
So now we're to number one.
The number one most popular topic
Mm-hmm.
was longevity / still together. And the comment was, our son is 45. We've been married for 47. Nope, not easy. And many times we both wanted just to walk away. Now we're just too old and too tired.
Again,
Humor.
another humor comment.
Too old and too tired
Yeah.
to even think about divorce. But I love the fact that the number one topic was longevity, that there were a lot of people that obviously that it shows that 87% false statistic was false, because a lot of people had similar comments of like, we've been married 25 years.
That's the real message.
Yeah.
Right? People stood up and said, a lot of people said, yeah, I hear you. I fell in that crack. But a lot of people were like, well, what was funny is, while there were some people who said, I think your stat is wrong, it's been proven wrong, there were plenty of people who didn't say, your stat's wrong, and by the way, we're making it. They just came in and said, well, we're making it too.
Right.
I don't think they were necessarily saying 87% is wrong. I think a lot of it heard it the way we heard it.
Yeah.
They're like, man, I'm gonna pat myself on the back because we're fighting through this thing, and a lot of people can't do this.
Right. Lot, yeah, because there were so many people, 25 years, 30 years, or our son is 10 and we've been married 15 and look what we've done over these 15 years with a 10-year-old with whatever the special needs was. So,
because I'll tell you this much, I don't know about you in the UK or Ireland or Maine, but there have been plenty of times in our marriage where we have felt like utter failures. Like we can't get anything right. We are losing this battle.
mm-hmm.
And when you
been told we were.
Yeah. And when you get an opportunity to feel good about yourself and what you're doing,
mm-hmm.
it is very recharging.
Yeah.
And it gives you strength to fight another day. And that's the way we heard that statistic. And I am at the same time glad that it was incorrect, but I'm also glad that there are so many people out there who took it kind of the same way.
Yeah.
And,
we've been married coming up on 32 years, 24 with Kaysen, and we say all the time, our marriage is stronger because of Kaysen.
Yeah.
So that's a blessing in itself. But we just really wanted people to understand that whole podcast was not ever about a statistic for us.
I would even say that for us, even that reel, that short post,
right.
which was a small segment of a larger discussion on this, wasn't intended to discourage.
It was never about a statistic for us. It was about us recognizing that it's hard
mm-hmm.
having a special needs child. Yes, you have great days, and yes, it's wonderful, and yes, there's so many blessings, and on and on and on. However, it's still hard.
And it's okay to admit that it's hard.
Right. And that you have grief over it.
Yeah.
And again, when we say these things, we're not saying that every special needs parent feels the way we feel. We are just saying for us, there is grief, there is sadness, there's joy, there's peace, there's all kinds of adjectives
we
can
have said
throw
this
out
before.
there.
We are not trained in psychology or science or anything. We don't profess to be anything other than experts of our own situation, and we're still learning.
Mhm.
So our whole perspective was we're just sharing what we are going through. And if that helps other people, that's great. What everyone else is dealing with, all we're saying is we see you, and
You're not alone.
you're not alone, and we're hoping that somewhere in these threads or whatever, you're going to find someone who can help you, whether it's us or someone who's commenting on something or someone who reaches out to you individually. It's not negative. It's just reality,
Mhm.
and allowing people. For us, it was very therapeutic to just even venture out to do this, just to declare this for ourselves. And so, I mean, that was why we did it in the first place.
Right. Well, it's interesting because there were several comments from people saying, I'm so glad I found your podcast. I'm so glad that you are speaking.
So I'm glad that someone is talking about this.
Yeah, someone's talking about it because it's not talked about.
Yeah.
And it's really not. And that's part of that isolation we talk about. We all are feeling similar feelings, but a lot of our feelings aren't expressed out in, as you call it, the civilian world, and civilians don't understand our world. And so we are going to talk about it. We're going to talk about our feelings. And this isn't a negative about having a special needs child or whatever. It's about our feelings of parenting a special needs child. Not everybody else's, but it's our feelings. And we hope people understand that they're not alone in this battle, and we can all just keep going one day at a time.
Yep.
Like some people even commented, or like I think you had said to somebody, we all take it one day at a time, and then that person responded, more like 1 minute at a time.
1 hour at a time.
Yeah,
1
1
minute
hour.
at a time.
Yeah, because everyone's in different situations, but we all understand it's hard, and that we're a special community.
In name and in meaning.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
So that was that was a reel we put out there that really got a lot of reaction to. Next week we're going to talk about a different reel, and that is the challenge of having your child reach that threshold of adulthood and having to switch from all your pediatric health providers to adult providers, where the bedside manner totally changes.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even, I think the majority of it was about the medical side of it, but I think it did get into some of the transition from being children to now they're adults. And what does that look like in the civilian world?
And having, essentially, you fight so hard to advocate for your child those first 18 years when you're getting more support than you're ever going to get again. And you got to start all over again. So we'll talk about that next week. Thanks for joining us. It was a lot of fun talking about your comments to our discussion. We'll see you next week. Until then, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kim.
And this is Specialness. Thank you.